Thursday, January 31st, 2013, dinner with Rabbi Yarden.
Today we're going to do a topic differentiating from the Tanya. We're going to move away from the Tanya for just for today. And we're going to talk about something I was studying. Basically, Tuesday I was supposed to give a Tanya class to a bunch of women. And Tuesday morning I got up. And as is my custom, I try to get up early. And I try to study a little bit before I pray. Which means that once in a blue moon, I actually get up early and study a little bit before I pray. This is the goal. And this Tuesday morning, I'm working through a series of discourses that span over 2 years. They were said over 2 years, and I'm working through it slowly but surely. And they were said by the Rebbe Rashab, who is the fourth Chabad Rebbe, and they're quite complex. And amongst them, one of them, which is the one I stumbled upon on Tuesday morning, is one that talks about prayer. And it caught my attention. They all hopefully catch my attention, but to different degrees. And this one I've been involved with for the past few days, thinking about and meditating on. So this is what we're going to talk about tonight, what he says in this little discourse. And he gives a parable. He says that there's a parent that has a child, and the parent wants to test the child to see how smart they are and how much they care for the parent. And the parent decides that they're going to conceal themselves. They're going to hide from the child to see what the child will do when they're not around. So the parent hides away, but the parent is hiding in a spot where they can watch the child. But the child doesn't realize that they are there. And the child, so the parable says, if the child is silly, foolish, or immature, the child will start to cry. And the child will start to moan about its loss, and will sit there in despair. And then after the despair passes, after this grief passes, the child will say, my parent forsake me, my parent forgot me, and I have to figure it out myself. And they'll pick themselves up and they'll go on their way. On the other hand, if the child is smart, the child will say, there's no way that my parent abandoned me. It's not possible. So therefore, my parent must want me to do something. What would my parent want me to do? Probably look for them. Therefore, I'm going to start searching for them. Where should I search for them? I should probably search for them in places that they would be found. And that child would get up and start looking for the parent. And that child would probably find the parent. And when they find the parent would reunite with the child. And the love would be even greater because from the distance they realize how much they appreciate and need each other. And then it's re-strengthened. And the parable is not one for tests in life. It's not one for challenges in life. This parable, sometimes you hear it and you say, okay, so when God is like concealing himself with this life challenge to me, that's what it is. That's not what it's talking about in this context. Maybe in other places, in other contexts. But in this one, it's just talking about prayer. Sometimes we open up in prayer and we're searching for God. We feel like we're a child searching for our parent. We feel like we're searching for that guidance, that love, that compassion, that feeling, that inspiration. And sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not there. And the question is, what do we do when it's not there? How do we find ourselves? Are we like the foolish child, or are we like the wise child? Are we one that says, oh, this is not working. Let me get through this as quickly as possible. Why isn't it working? Why aren't you there? Why aren't you answering me? Turn into despair. Turn into rage or shame or some other form of that. And then as soon as we give up, we close the book and try to figure out the problems ourselves. Or are we like the second child and say, well, obviously God didn't forsake me. He must be hiding, wanting me to look a little bit harder. How can I search for him? How do I search for my parent? And I search for him in his ways. So therefore, I can either pray a little bit harder. Maybe today I need to meditate a little bit also. Maybe I should study a little bit, increase in an act of goodness and kindness. But I said search for him where he is found. It says there's a verse, Achrei Havaya Lokechem Talechu. After our God, we should go. And it says there's two different explanations of this. There's the basic ways that we should follow in God's footsteps. But the second way is acharei, if we're behind. Achar can also mean behind. If we're behind God, we need to get to work so we get to the point of telechu, of going with him. Sometimes we feel like we're behind the game. Sometimes we feel like we're a little bit behind the scenes. And therefore, the question is, what do we do about it? I've seen two different approaches to prayer. I must admit, a lot of people think that first of all, when you get like some rabbinical certificate, you get stamped with immediate inspiration whenever you pray. This is completely false, not true. I believe all human beings struggle with prayer. I believe that's a statement that's not false. I think for some of us, there are days when we wake up and we're inspired and we're like, wow, this is amazing. And other days we wake up and say, this is not happening. It's just not working. And I believe that's true for every human being. And I believe that we also all feel when it's not happening, that's something unique to us. It's like this isn't working, and it's truth, it's all of us. And I've seen two different approaches to prayer. One approach was that people would set aside certain amounts of time to pray. Maybe 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. Then of course you have like the 6-hour people, but you have like those people that set up, today I'm praying, every morning I pray for 20 minutes. And there's the other people who say, I pray for however long prayer takes. And there's truth to both. I'm not putting down either one. And there's negativities to both. Because if you imagine for a second you're the one that prays, I'm like, you just go through the motions, you do your 20-minute little bit, I pray for however long it takes. There's certain days when I wake up and I say, well, today it's going to take 30 seconds, I'm not feeling nothing. Get up, this is not working, I'm done. All right, let's go solve the problem. The problem is I don't have money, I better get a job. Prayer didn't work, obviously. And then there's the people who say, well, I don't do that. I pray every day for 20 minutes because then even when it's rough, I rough it out for 20 minutes. I put in the effort it takes for 20 minutes. But then there's the argument to that you're always limited. It's always the exact same framework. It's that mundane. It's that formality. It's just 20 minutes. You put on the phylacteries. You don't put on the phylacteries. You turn the pages. You don't turn it. It's just 20 minutes. You just sit there and say, oh, we're done. This horrible exercise is now over. And then you say, well, I should be praying however long it takes. Because then I'll sit there and I'll say, this isn't happening yet. I'm going to sit here for another 20 minutes. This isn't happening. I'm going to give it another 20 minutes. So there's truths to both, but they're truths in the right approach. In other words, it depends where you're coming from. For some of us, we need that time boundary. Some of us, we specifically need not the time boundary. A lot of people I know, like for example, I teach a prayer class at the Frankel-Jewish Academy. And I know a lot of students have issues with structured prayer. They say, how can some person from a different generation who I've never met tell me what's going to inspire me in prayer? And is that what prayer is meant to be? It's a good question. Is that really the truth of prayer? But the other question is, are you going to pray if we don't give you the structure? Are you really going to sit there for 20 minutes and search out God in your ways? Is that what you're going to do? And for most teens, I don't think they need to tell me the answer or not. I think they're just looking for ways out of things. For adults, we have our own approaches. The end of the day is that we have to search out God. That is the goal. And if he's hiding, which way do we go? There was a person who recently here in this community who started taking on the approach of Psalms. Psalms is one of the most powerful tools that we're said to have is Psalms. David's songs and Solomon's songs are written down. They're deep, deep things. And the person was struggling that they didn't understand them. Intellectually, they couldn't comprehend what was so great about them. They're just a bunch of words. Poem and poetic and this and that. But the depths doesn't have a message. It's not like reading the Serenity Prayer, which speaks to me. These are just Psalms. I know you're telling me they're great, but I don't get it. I don't connect with it. And Psalms is meant to be something that goes beyond the intellect to a part of the soul. It's supposed to be one of those things that we don't intellectualize. We just say and allow our souls to open. And therefore there are different parts of prayer. There are different ways of praying. Certain parts of prayer are meant to be intellectualized. They're meant to be understood. There are those people that will get up and they'll say, I want my friend to feel better, and I don't know which prayer it is, so I'm going to say the Borei Priya Eitz. Which in essence, if you translate English, they're saying, thank you God for creating trees. And what they're trying to say is, God, please help my friend feel better. So in simple translation, it doesn't necessarily match up. It doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just doesn't necessarily make sense. Then there are certain prayers that go well beyond that. They go well beyond any meaning, and the idea is that they're just the depths. The Shema, in truth, one could say the Shema with any deep, heartfelt meanings, and it'll mean what one wants it to mean. And For example, prayers can be said in any language because prayers are meant for one to say what they're feeling. Psalms is meant to go deeper than that. The makeup of a person is that we have emotions and intellect. As Tanya has been outlining, intellect goes above emotions. So what's the point of emotional prayer? It should be intellectual prayer. Yet there's something that's deeper than emotions and deeper than intellect. And that would almost be translated, unfortunately, English is limiting in this area, as feelings, as soul feelings. Sometimes we have feelings deep down inside that aren't emotional feelings. They're not rage, they're not love, they're not for self reasons. They're coming from somewhere deeper. We just know that this is right. When you hear, sometimes we enjoy hearing a bittersweet story, one of those truthfully sad stories. It's not that we're enjoying hearing it. It's that we're enjoying the depth of the truth of the feeling that we're getting out of hearing that story. There's a part of us that's truthfully to our core moved. And that's a soul feeling. So when we pray, we don't want it to be an emotional prayer. We don't want it to be a prayer where we go in there and we say, I love you, God, for the new car, and I hate you for the fact that this happened. If that's where we're at, that's where we're at. I mean, there is truth that at least we're praying. But deeper than that, intellectualizing, God, I understand there's a message here. Please clarify what the message is. You burned down my house. What is the, oh, there's insurance. Okay, thank you. And everything else that goes along, whatever the messages are, that's intellectual. But there's a whole deeper level, which is our soul feelings we're trying to connect to. And therefore, Psalms, the goal is not to get stuck by the intellect. It's completely to jump into a soul framework, allowing one's soul to open up, allowing one's soul to feel and to communicate directly with God. And these are some of the different aspects of prayer. And of course, we all struggle. At times, at least, I all struggle with prayer. It's not something that I always feel. And the question is, what do I do when I don't feel it? Do I negate it? Do I push it away? Do I wash it away as just another part of my day? Or is it something that I put effort into, thought into? And therefore, it's really spoke to me. Because I pray every morning. That's something that I do. It's one of my routines. There's 3 prayers during the day that I say, the morning, the middle, and the end of the day. The middle is meant, in general, the setup is that the morning is meant to sanctify one's day. The middle is meant to interrupt one's day. And the ending is obviously to end one's day. So the middle is pretty easy for me, because if I'm busy with a million different things and I pause to say a prayer, I've already interrupted my physical day to realize my spiritual existence. Obviously I should have intent and I should have concentration. But the fact that I've done it already is a step in what I'm trying to accomplish. I recognize what I want to recognize, especially if in the middle of the day I say, I got to stop, I got to pray. It's supposed to be sometime in the middle of the day and I'm running out of time. Because I've had that pause. I've refocused myself. So the beginning, though, is meant to set the tone for the day. And that's hard. The better the tone, the better the day. The better the intent, the better the content. There's a law that kids are supposed to honor their oldest sibling as they honor their parents. It's a law that's brought down. Why? There's a reasoning to it. Not every law has a reasoning, but this law has a reasoning. They say that the most of the parents are supposed to be found in the oldest child. That's what it says. What does that mean on a spiritual plane? Let's not talk about physical planes like get caught up in our own families and anything else like that. But in a spiritual plane, what that means is that theoretically what's meant to happen is parents are supposed to put a lot of effort in shaping the first child. And then their first child, so to speak, is supposed to pave the way for the rest of the children. Does that always happen on a physical plane? Maybe, maybe not. But on a day, every day, we give birth to a new day. And the question is, how are we going to shape our first actions of that day? Our first thought, our first speech, and our first action of that day. So obviously, it doesn't mean we get out of the bed and we go to the bathroom and everything else. When we make our first conscious action of the day, is it prayer? And if it is prayer, how great is the prayer? If a prayer is something we put effort into to make it heartfelt, emotional, and meaningful to us, then it can give birth to future actions throughout the day that we can be proud of. Give birth to a family of a day that we can be proud of. On the other hand, if it's one of those situations of a mess, then isn't the rest of the spiritual day going to be a mess? Because it's only going to fall in the footsteps of what we created. So, this is some of the ideas of prayer that he talks about, first of all, in this discourse. And second of all, of course, in many other places it's talked about in prayer. But the idea that if prayer isn't happening, isn't working, there's 2 ways to go about it. One is turning away from prayer. And the other one is investing in prayer. We talk about it in the language of the program that at times when everything's going good, we sort of loosen up on the program. It's that natural response, oh, things are going good. I don't need the 4 meetings a week. I could probably survive on one a month or something else like that. And then all of a sudden, like, things are coasting and coasting, and then you just have the disaster set in pretty quickly. As opposed to if we say, things are going good, I wonder what would happen if I even invested more. Would things go better? Could I up this even more? Because that, seemingly, if this worked to get me here, would it work to get me further? That's what we do in the business world. We invest in the market, took us to one spot, then we invest more to take us further. We just pull out, oh, that was good, but I'm done. No, wouldn't do that again. And the same thing with prayer. If prayer finally does work for us one day because we did invest in it, we read the words, we spent the time, we meditated, maybe we listened to a song, or we spent time doing the things that get us where we need to get to, shouldn't we continue doing that? It finally worked today, as opposed to most of say, oh, it worked. You see, I'm at the spiritual framework where I need to be. Or do we say, hey, if this is good, I wonder what better could be. Maybe I really could walk on water and all those other wonderful things. I would not try that. But that is the question of, first of all, when we're not feeling it, are we investing it? Are we searching out our Father in his places where he could be hiding, knowing that that's what he wants from us? And I want to end up with one last parable. I heard in regards to the the idea of study of Torah. There's a parable of a child who has a parent that works excessively hard. And most of us can relate to having either one or two parents that work excessively hard and long hours. And this child knows that there's certain days of the week that the parent leaves to go to work well before the child gets up. And there's even certain weeks where the parent will go, maybe it's tax season or maybe it's in the office at work or anywhere else it may be, that there could be a stretch of days where the kid won't see the parent because the parent leaves before they get up and they come home after the kid goes to sleep or they go on a business trip. But the kid always knows whenever this stretch starts when the end date is, when it's all going to end. Okay, it's going to be 3 days. And the kid braces themselves. You know, the next 3 days, oh, just 2 days left. Oh, just a day left. And so on and so forth. And then finally on that last day when they're waiting for their parent, they ask the other parent, so when am I going to see the parent? After you're in pajamas, we're going to let you stay up a little bit late, and then the parent will come home. And the kid gets in pajamas at 3 o'clock in the middle of the afternoon. They think that'll speed up the process or something. Yeah, I'm in pajamas. Are they home yet? No. We're staying up late, so it's going to be a little bit later, And then the kid's checking the door and, did 5 minutes pass yet? We said 5 hours. Oh, but did it pass yet? No, it's going to be in a long time. Has it been a long time yet? And they start that whole process. Until finally, the end of the day comes, and the kid's waiting by the window, and they see the parent pull up. The kid's ecstatic, and the door opens, and the parent envelops this kid in this huge hug. And in truth, that's the essence of the relationship between the parent and child, being expressed right there. That's not something that's always expressed. The child leaves that hug and goes hits their sibling, that same parent will scream at them. But the essence of the relationship is found in that hug. Because it's a true expression of what each one wants to show each other. And the question is, and this is the way the parable was said by the Rabbi in regards to the study of Torah, not as in detail. But the question is at the end of the day, what do? We get home. Do we run to get a moment of inspiration? Do we run to get a moment of spirituality? Or do we say, oh, we got to do that again? Because that is the truth of our existence. Where are we running to? In other words, if the whole day we're sitting there and we're saying, oh, I just can't wait to get home. I'm on page 12 and I'm going to read one more page. Or I'm going to call my friend, or I'm going to call my sponsor, I'm going to do whatever gets me in that spiritual place that I need to be. Then the entire day was a spiritual existence. It was in search and pursuit of relationship with God in the way that we relate. And then we get home, we do it. It is that hug that envelops and expresses the relationship from the past day, 2 days, or even 3 days at times. On the other hand, if we get home, and this was not on our minds, and then finally the phone calls and it is, let's say, our sponsor saying, oh, I got to do this again. Isn't that the true expression of our entire day was? Anything but the spiritual? Or maybe it's that we're sitting at a meeting, we're saying, I can't wait for this to end because I got a business deal I got to get done soon. So where are we running to? There's a debate found amongst Hasidic sects. Do you eat before prayer? Or do you pray before eat in the morning? And there are those who say, how could you eat before prayer? You need to pray before you eat. You need to prepare yourself. Eating is a physical thing. You need a spiritual preparation for physical eating. Then there's others who say, but then when you're praying the entire time, your goal is to eat. You're praying to eat. which sounds spiritual, but in essence means you're rushing through the prayer the whole time saying, what's for breakfast? You should eat and get yourself out of the way so you can pray. And again, it comes down to the approach. What are you thinking about when you're doing both things? When I first got married, there was two people arguing. I've said this before. Two people arguing about how you should enter the house. Do you run into the house, see your spouse, give them a big hug, say, hey, what's up, and then run off to, unload, so to speak? You take off your coat, take off your keys, you go to the bathroom, do everything you got to do. Or do you first walk in the house, take off your coat, take off your keys, take your deep breath, and then go in and spend like 10 minutes with your spouse? Hey, I'm here, I'm ready, what's going on? And I was listening to her, and I was like, each person is different. Some people need to first do this. You can't just make a cookie-cut relationship for every spouse and say, this is the deal. But it is the approach. What is your focus when you walk in? Is it to be with your spouse, and how are you best going to be with your spouse? Or is it to be somewhere else? What'll get me, out of that situation as quickly as possible somewhere else? And that is what it's with prayer. What is our approach to this? Are we approaching it to get a relationship with our higher power, with God, in contact with Him? Or is our approach to just try to get something for ourselves? Because in truth, the kid who's searching, the first kid who says, my father is missing and he's abandoned me, it's all about himself. He's in self-wallow, lying on the floor crying in self-pity and saying, oh, my father doesn't care about me and he abandoned me here and now he expects me to do it myself. And then he gets up and figures it out himself. But it always was about himself. As opposed to the other child has realized that, what about my father? What about my parents? He loves me. Obviously he couldn't abandon me. And he's thinking about his parents' approach. I heard a story about a man who comes home late one day from work, a few minutes late. And his wife says, oh, dinner's going to be ready soon. Okay. And he waits in the dining room, and he waits 45 minutes. And 45 minutes later, some eggs come in. Some eggs. And he looks at his wife, and his first thought is, what'd you tell me when you came in that dinner's going to be ready soon? It takes you 2 minutes to make eggs. Why didn't you just say, I never started dinner? And then, here I am, I came home late, which means I had a rough day and a horrible day, and this is what I'm eating, eggs. And then he stops himself and he thinks, if this is what my wife made an hour after I came home, imagine how hard her day was. Because all there are at the end of the day is eggs. I wonder what's going on with her. And he pauses to think about her. But the question is, where is that focus? Where is that approach? Are we going into prayer for ourselves? Or are we going into prayer for God? Are we going into prayers on our self-focus, on our self-terms, and our self-boundaries? Or are we trying to break beyond ourselves? Because if it is for ourselves and with our own boundaries, then we have definition there. We have limitation there. Until here, I'll try and no further. If we're going for God, we're going to go with the full yard. We're going to go for what it takes. So this is what I wanted to share with you guys. We're going to pause here and take questions, comments, and...
You want to stop?
Yeah, I should pause it.